you have the greatest opportunities for your kids in this country. It's better than any other country in the world. You talk about Sweden and South Korea and all these places that have better outcomes, but the resources we put behind students in this country is just mind-blowing.
Welcome to the Sapience Podcast, the podcast that explores the inspiring stories and contributions from influential members of our community. My name is Sam, and I'm joined by Reuben D'Silva, a dedicated leader and educator based here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Reuben's commitment to public service is evident through his key roles on committees such as Education and Government Affairs. His extensive public service extends beyond legislative roles, contributing to organizations like the Ethiopian Community Development Council and the North Las Vegas Library District. A former Marine, Reuben's military service earned him honors such as the Purple Heart and the Navy Achievement Medal. In education, Reuben excels as a high school history teacher and has been recognized with awards like the Southern Nevada Teacher of the Year. His academic journey includes degrees from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the University of Pennsylvania, and Yale University. Embodying a blend of leadership, service, and academic excellence, please welcome Reuben D'Silva.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome. I want to start off by asking you if you could share a little bit more about your background and your journey from Mumbai, India to Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was born in Mumbai, back then Bombay, India. And when I was 2 years old, we immigrated to the United States. My family first moved to New York City, which I say is like the JFK Airport is like the Ellis Island now of the 21st century. That's where we immigrants first come to, and we see America for the first time. And I remember too coming off the plane and seeing my dad there, waiting for us in that JFK Airport. And New York was home for us for about 4 years. We lived in Queens, Flushing, Queens. And then when I was 6, we decided to move all the way out here to Las Vegas. The cost of living was better. There was a lot of safety concerns and issues in New York at the time. This was the early 1990s. And, we just wanted a breath of fresh air. And, like so many other Americans of the past, we decided to move out west, come out west. And we laid our homestead here in North Las Vegas, which is still the same area that I'm still in. So this was 1991. And pretty much I've been here, since, aside from my time in the Marine Corps and my time in graduate school in Philadelphia and in New Haven, Las Vegas has been home. And so, I've committed myself to this city. I served on those different boards, including the libraries board for North Las Vegas. And now I represent my neighborhood, in the state legislature, and I'm honored to do so.
That is amazing. And I can imagine that your community feels such a sense of pride that you are not just anyone, right? You are a member of their community. You are someone who is a product of their community. And I'm sure that they have a lot of pride in the fact that you are representing them. I think that's amazing. Can you explain to me a little more about what motivated you to pursue a career in education and politics?
So, I've always been, driven by the sense of like giving back, service. It was a big part of like my family upbringing. We're very involved with the church that we grew up in, St. Christopher's Catholic Church. There was a real like expectation that we were supposed to give back, serve, volunteer at the bazaar, and then also like get involved with community organizations. My dad would take me around to all kinds of different places, meetings in the community. The Nevada Partners was a big thing back then on the West Side. My mom was a teacher with the EOB, the Head Start program. This is after she got her papers and was became legally recognized. And she would take me to all those meetings, and that's how I really became involved in the community. And then later on, while I was in high school, I had the privilege really of having like one of our community uncles. We knew him as like an uncle in the community back then. But he was actually my soccer coach when I got to high school, and this was Isaac Barone. He just retired this past summer, 30 years in the school district, and he is also a current city councilman. So while we were in high school, he would take us out to these different meetings. They were more political in nature now.
Yeah.
So one of them was the HIP breakfast, the Hispanics in Politics breakfast, as a sophomore and as a junior. I go to those, breakfasts and just meet all these like people that seen the news, city councilmen and county commissioners and folks running for Congress. And, so I developed an interest in electoral politics.
Yeah.
And another individual too who was very influential was Lawrence Weekley. At that time, he was a city councilman. He used to have this thing called the teen town halls over at the old city council. And I used to participate in them, whenever the opportunity came to sign up. Yeah. They would go to all the different high school students. I'd sign up every single year. And we'd come together and we'd just talk about, as teenagers now, about some of the big issues facing the country and also facing our neighborhoods. Yeah. So that's what really got the interest going in politics specifically. Yeah. But even after high school, I was class president, I was homecoming king, I was very active, at Rancho High School. Yeah. And made it a point to really engage with other students. And, I just enjoyed, giving of myself. Yeah. And after graduating, I continued that into college. I joined a fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, became the chapter president. And then while I was in college, I also joined the Marine Corps Reserves, which was also a way for me to give back to this country. The ultimate way, I think, is certainly
absolutely
in the armed services for an immigrant, specifically in particular. And but this was also, a time when we, were in a pretty major conflict, two conflicts, Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
And I ended up getting deployed my junior year at UNLV. I finished up at CSN, and then went on to UNLV. And that after that first semester, I was deployed to Iraq. I served during the surge in the Ramadi, Fallujah, Al-Habaniya area, and ended up getting injured. Got shot to the arm. Spent a year at Balboa Navy Hospital. But I also was able to really reflect on the sense that this is what service is about. Sometimes service can serving others, serving the country, serving the community can cost you your life. I came this close.
Oh my goodness. So
it's really been a sense of it's been a sense of giving back, and that's what ultimately also led me to being a teacher. Just as I saw myself doing an important service for the country, and in the Marines, when it comes to the community, I think there's no, greater way of giving back to your neighborhood than by being involved with something like education. So I was looking at becoming a firefighter. I couldn't do that anymore because of my injury. I was shot to the arm. I can't really use my left hand anymore. Okay. So I fully embraced teaching and made that a mission of myself. I want to be a teacher. I got to go out there, finish my education, and get credentialed. And that's the route I took. And I'm 12 years in the game, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. It's very humbling to hear you speak of your experiences and your dedication to service. I think that people like you in our community are so vital, not just to build our community, but for young people to see, because young people are like little mirrors. They reflect what we see in ourselves. So someone who is dedicated to the learning experience, but also giving back is so special in the Las Vegas community because, like you mentioned, we're from all over the place. Las Vegas has people from every walk of life. And so building that sense of community and fostering that like you do, I think that is such an amazing thing. And thank you so much for doing that for us.
Thank you, for recognizing that. It was a conscientious decision to come back to Rancho High School, which is the school I graduated from, which was the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I'm still living in the neighborhood. There was that sort of like feeling that, look, I've been given so many great opportunities. Even after the Marines, I was able to study at 2 Ivy League, not just one, but 2, get a master's degree from Penn and from Yale. Wow. And I studied, international relations and global affairs. It maybe a tangent of going into diplomacy, which is also an important service too, working on international conflicts. Things like that. But there was a sense that, coming back to my neighborhood, coming back to my school and being that sort of role model for now the actual kids of my classmates. It's crazy.
So cool. That is so cool.
That it can happen. A kid from this neighborhood, didn't come up with too much, who was formerly undocumented. You can, achieve some decent things.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Full circle. And like how beautiful. I think a lot of the times when you talk about politics or people of influence, it seems very detached, but you are in that community. You are still with that. And I feel like that is what makes you a very special person for the community. And so I appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit more about your experience in the Nevada Assembly, because that's one of the ways that you really are driving that service and that experience.
Yeah. So, Plato always said that there's like two ultimate forms of service. One is, being a warrior. The other one is being political, which is, in the Athens of his time, the Greece of his time was, democracy was an experiment that they were really like embracing, saying that, government should be run by people. And one of the ultimate callings now is to protect the polis, the city. And then secondly, to serve as one of its, leaders, given the fact that you have been put up there by your fellow community members. So I really, believe in democracy and this idea that, that if we want our society to function properly, we all have to participate and be, very engaged and involved. And that there's no greater, I think, form of service than by serving in an elected office. So I saw that a lot of the issues that I was like dealing with at the time, I was very involved with like the teachers union, a whole multitude of different community groups and advocacy organizations. It was really through the legislative process. And I had, gone up there and lobbied on bills in the past. And there was an opening that took place in 2022 when my good friend, at that time, Assemblyman Edgar Flores, sought the Senate, and I sought a seat in the Senate, and it opened up, Assembly District 28. And, I just, went, full speed ahead, and, decided to throw my hat in the ring. And it was a pretty competitive primary. But we ended up doing well, and I won the seat in 2022. I'm just a mere freshman, rising sophomore, you can say now, because the session hasn't started yet. So I'm still pretty low on the totem pole, but it's one of the great honors of my life, serving, as a state assemblyman, a state lawmaker. And representing, the families and the community that I grew up in.
Yeah, I mean, you're a voice for our community, and how valuable that you are so attached and involved in the community, because that means that your voice is more accurate than maybe some other voices.
Yeah. It's interesting because Vishal and Mike were talking about this. We had a meeting here last week. Just to go over some like education issues and they asked me about like that role of being a school teacher and also serving as a state lawmaker, and it's what keeps me grounded. I'm right at the front lines, it's an amazing thing that we have not just one, we have several teachers now, serving in the state legislature. But it's it also gives us that sort of insight into like, why are we making these laws? What are the sort of effects these laws are going to have? That place where the rubber meets the road, where the teacher is right there in front of the students and everything behind them, the apparatus of public education behind the teacher, and then society behind those young people, our students. And it does keep you grounded. And I'm very, humbled and honored, to serve as a school teacher and be able to serve in the legislature at the same time.
Yeah. I think knowing that the decisions you make also affect the kids you teach, I think that has to be a strong force, because you see it in real time. There's no detachment from there, you get to see it really work in front of your eyes.
Very much so.
Yeah. What has been the most rewarding experience serving on the assembly, also with government affairs, legislative operations, and election committees? I know that's a lot. So. But what are the rewarding aspects of your position?
The rewarding aspects, I would say, are being able to push, carry, and then eventually pass bills that are going to benefit the state as a whole, but particularly my district and my constituents. I was more so involved with the education committee. Most of my bills that I put out were education related.
Absolutely.
So I was able to have a much more of a hands-on sort of effect on the policymaking process through the education committee. And I was able to get bills now that are laws in the state, through that committee. My roles in the other committees, were more serving as a committee member, voting on bills, and kind of creating, the sort of like right sort of bill package, legislation package that would come out and then hopefully then eventually go to the Senate and become signed by the governor. But I think in the end, the ultimate sort of thing I took away from this was the fact that, I'm involved, I'm here, and I'm also bringing the voices of my community to this process and the voices of young people. I made it a point to get, some of my students to call in and to actually, to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I told them too, like, hey, look, while I'm up here at these committee meetings, watch these committee meetings. And if you have a question, text me. And I will ask your question to the superintendent.
That is so
I'll ask your question to the mayor of so-and-so town. I mean, it was a direct sort of conduit, and I felt very honored to do so.
Yeah.
To be there, to be these young people's voices who can't even vote, but now have their teacher asking the superintendent questions.
How do they feel about it?
Oh, they love it. I am not. The reason I got elected was because of them.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a very competitive primary, but I had just throngs of volunteers.
Yeah.
That just came out there and said, you know what, Mr. D'Silva, we want to get out there and we want to knock on doors for you. We want to tell people why, they should vote for you. And they did. I mean, day after day after day, they went out there and knocked on doors. There was some students, there was a handful that actually their actual door knocking was in the thousands.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Wow.
And now they've gone on, to also take an interest in politics. They're, off to college. Serving and they're also involved with other community organizations and education organizations and political organizations. And their first foray into this was my campaign. And I'm just honored to know that and humbled, really, that this was where it all began. But then I harken back and think of the teachers who opened up doors for me, like Isaac Derone at Rancho High School, who was just a teacher and a soccer coach, but who also say, hey, Reuben, you got to come to this event. You got to come to this festival. You should come to this political meeting. And that's what opened up the doors for me.
Yeah.
Back when I was, 13, 14, 15. Yeah. So I'm hoping that these students who've also engaged the political process for the first of my campaign, they'll also go on to become an assemblyman or senator or a governor or something, maybe president. I'm optimistic, like I said,
cool.
So we'll see.
Your stories, as soon as you said you were talking about your influence on your students, I started thinking about all of the teachers that have been influential to me and thinking about the role they play in my life and you playing that role in other people's life and, impacting them, motivating them. I think that is one of the most useful things and something that as educators, that is a power that is given to educators is to influence, especially our younger generation. So I think it's so cool that your students were able to be involved in the political process of getting you elected.
I wouldn't be elected if it wasn't for them.
So amazing.
They got me here. I'll never forget that. I always say I'll never forget that.
You know what? But you never, I don't mean to speak for your students, but from a student's perspective, you also never forget a good teacher. And there's no doubt that your dedication to your students, it's a reflection of you. Their service to you is a reflection of the service to them. So that's amazing.
I got my fingers crossed for that.
I'm sure they're going to do amazing things because they're learning from you. I want to talk a little bit more about how your service in the U.S. Marine Corps has shaped your approach to leadership and public service.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The Marines was such a profoundly important, fundamental experience in my life. I joined the Marines right after high school.
Yeah.
And again, with this sense of wanting to give back to this country that I've given myself and my family, just everything that we have. And but it was also a very traumatic time too. I went off to the war.
Yeah.
And, saw some crazy things. And then eventually, had a horrific injury. I was shot by a sniper. The round almost blew my arm off. And then, I had to, get medevaced out of the kill zone and spend a whole year at Balboa Navy Hospital with other people who were even more severely injured than I was. These young Marines and soldiers and sailors, were missing limbs. And, there was one guy, I remember, who had his jaw blown off from a sniper round. Another one had his skull blown off, and they were just pretty much building us back. And I never felt like I was wounded or injured, even though I had a pretty severe injury. When I saw the other Marines and sailors and soldiers that I was recuperating with, they were really messed up, bad. They were all blown up. I was one of the few guys that was shot, and but it was just a sense, that life is fragile, that life is fleeting, life is short. Yeah. And that we got to make the most of it. I remember when my dad came and visited me in the hospital and he said, hey, look, God has given you a second chance. You came this close. A sniper missed you from 25 meters away. I mean, that's like, that never happens, and you have to, do something with this life that, the rest of the life that you've been blessed with.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget that, so, I just, embrace this sense of duty to the country, but also like now extending that towards making, the country, the community, the world a better place, because I was like, I've been given a second lease on life and I need to do something with it. Yeah. So I just really is dedicating myself. I mean, first and foremost, it was just, my grades in college. I was, like I said, I was a, the fraternity. I was a chapter president. I was okay, but I wasn't a stellar student, so I was just taught, my whole goal was just to graduate, get a job somewhere and just go on with life and be nonchalant. But I became a lot more focused, and again, my pops was very instrumental. He said, your job right now after you get out of the Marines is to just be the best you can be in school.
Okay. Absolutely.
And education is the great catapult. He always said that, So that's when I first started, like, and I was also very much caught up with like the Obama campaign at the time. And I remember him talking about like how the Ivy League was a place where he, we actually went to. He didn't start off there. He started off at Occidental College. And I was reading his book at the time too, Dreams of My Father. And then I was, I want to go there. I don't have the grades for it right now. But maybe if I can get an A in every single one of my college classes from here until graduation, I just might crack like a 3.6.
Yeah.
But that's what I,
Wow.
did, and I remember when I was, being interviewed at Penn at the time in Columbia, they would ask me that question. They were like, how did you go from having these like mediocre grades, even one F and a couple of D's to just having a stellar, sort of finish?
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, I went to the war. And I had like a come to Jesus moment pretty much. Like, hey, look, I got to just do better.
Yeah.
And they actually, found that to be very like, inspiring even.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't have like the best grades, for the Ivy League, I had good grades. I could have probably gone to other top 25 programs, but not Yale or Penn or Columbia, which is the school I got accepted to. I think they saw that this was what they want. They want somebody who's now taking their academic sort of life seriously. Yeah. And the Marines is what really like, catalyzed that in me. It was really a sense that, I'm giving back to my country. I've seen some crazy stuff. I was in a part of the war, the surge that saw the heaviest casualty that the American military had faced since the Vietnam War. I mean, this was like straight combat. And I myself was a casualty of that, of one of those, of that situation.
Yeah.
So my thing was also, come back, study, and then try to give back. That's when I first started looking at international affairs. Maybe I could work in diplomacy. Yeah. How to like stop conflict. And when I finished up at UNLV, and I decided to go to Penn. Yeah. The thing that I focused on was global affairs and the role specifically then that religion plays in wars, and how do we understand that, embrace it, and then try to create peace processes in situations where, where religion is at play, which tends to be the most difficult, as you can see right now around the world, the most difficult sort of like place to bring peace. Yeah. And I went on to, take a strong interest in it. I finished up at Penn, and then I, saw that some of the great centers in the whole world for this specific sort of diplomacy was Yale. Yeah. And, got in. I was able to study under Tony Blair, who was one of the, he was the Prime Minister of England at the time, when the war was going on. And then later on, stunningly, I was able to study with Ambassador Ryan Crocker, who was the U.S. ambassador to Iraq when I was a Marine there. And I just learned so much from him. Now I'm sitting here as a Marine who saw at the front lines, what the war was about. Yeah. But then to study under a guy like Ambassador Crocker, who was at the very highest levels, he was he had to oversee the reconstruction of the country. Right. So I was able to get both sides. Wow. And it was just a fundamental sort of a transit from the Marine Corps, serving in a war, and then understanding what war is, and then getting into a program now to learn about diplomacy and try to work in ending wars. Because wars is a horrible thing. That's one of the things that really took away from it. We have to do all that we can stop it. And it's not to say that sometimes you have to go to war. Sometimes there's a time to fight.
Yeah.
But we have to do all that we can, to secure peace and to bring about peaceful resolutions to conflict. That's one of the ultimate things that I've taken away from the Marines is, war is hell, and that there's a place for it, but that we got to do all that we can to bring about peaceful resolutions.
Absolutely. Your perseverance, I think, provides our listeners' kids, so much hope. Because you've met with so much adversity, from coming here as an immigrant child to going into war, being injured, and still coming out with an optimistic attitude. I think could just provide anyone hope. Like, talking to you feels hopeful, and I feel like our listeners will feel that too.
I'd like to switch gears and talk to you about your membership in the Ethiopian Community Development Council. Can you share a little bit more about your experience?
Well, it's a very important organization here in town. So there's two organizations now that do all the refugee resettlement. It's the Catholic Charities, and then the other one is the Ethiopian Community Development Council, which is now the African Community Center. But they're tasked out by the State Department to resettle refugees who have been granted asylum in the United States. So I was asked by my friend Milan, who is the executive director, there to serve on the board, and I was able to help him in some regards, just get more sort of attention paid to the ECDC, and then also this past legislative session he came up to the legislature to really work on building relationships with lawmakers who can then support the endeavors.
Yeah.
But the work of the ECDC and of Catholic Charities too, which has a resettlement component, is really to find folks homes here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So these are people now who've gone through something cataclysmic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're coming as a refugee or seeking asylum, you've been through something crazy. You've been
Absolutely.
through war, you've been through some kind of social turmoil, political destabilization, some kind of famine, poverty. I mean, you're looking at situations that are dire. And we have a place for folks like that in the United States. I'm thankful for America being such a open and friendly country to folks who are really experiencing cataclysmic sort of situations. So the process is that you apply for asylum, you apply for a refugee status, and then the State Department will work on resettling you in different parts of the countries.
Yeah.
So those two agencies are the two agencies here in Southern Nevada that'll take in folks and then find them I don't want to say a home, but an opportunity to become part of our society.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of African refugees in the United States who are here in Southern Nevada, coming from Ethiopia, from Somalia, from Eritrea, from the Congo. There's a major segment of folks who are coming here from the Congo. So they were primarily dealing with individuals from those countries, but there were many Afghans. There were people from Iraq. There were people from other parts of the world too that are also part of our refugee, our embrace of these refugees. And so the whole point is getting here, following you, giving you support, for a good amount of time, finding you a job, and then making sure that you can now thrive and be part of the American landscape as like everybody else. So I'm very honored. I was very honored to be asked to serve on that board.
You are building the community for them, or helping them build a new community out of such hardship. And so I think that is very powerful, and I think something that we in Vegas can appreciate, having people come here and build their life here. So,
and the stories you hear too, they really give you a sense of hope and inspiration in people. I mean, even the executive director Milan, he came out of the actual Bosnia and the crisis in the Balkans. He came here as a refugee. That was a terrible war that took place in Southeast Europe in the early 1990s. With war crimes and genocide that was actively taking place. He has an amazing story. I mean, I'd hear from folks from Afghanistan, from people from the Congo, folks from Somalia. These and the sort of stories they have. Family members being killed, experiencing famine. Fighting to get a bowl of rice. And then when they come here, you can see just how committed they are to the sense that, I've been given a second lease on life,
Wow.
a second opportunity to build something for myself and for my family. And so many of these refugees are going on to just, achieve great things, and I'm just so proud of the work that these refugee resettlement agencies are doing here in Southern Nevada.
I hear you talk about these, and I cannot fathom the struggle that these individuals must have gone through. I think that their experiences are so hard for anyone to fathom. And so I think having someone like you to speak on their behalf and to share stories and share about the community that you're involved in, I appreciate that, because I think bringing to light the lived experiences of the people who are in our communities, I think that's what we need more of.
We do. We definitely do. We definitely do.
Thank you for sharing about that. I want to talk about your numerous awards. So you have the Purple Heart, which we did talk a little bit about why you received that, but also the Navy Achievement Medal. Can you share about those two?
Yeah, so the Purple Heart is given to any service member who's wounded in combat.
Yeah.
So I received mine because of being shot by a sniper in Fallujah, June of 2007, and it's also the oldest award in the U.S. military. It was actually instituted by General George Washington, 1782, I believe. Right at the end of the Revolutionary War, as a sort of like recognition of troops who had been injured in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And so that's how I received the Purple Heart. The Navy Achievement Medal, it's like a two-part award. So one was for the actual night of what happened in the in that incident when I was injured. So long story short, I mean, there's a bit of a controversy there too, and I've been very open about it. So when I was hit when I was manning the turret gun, I was sitting on top of a 7-ton truck manning the turret gun. The round came in, and it was kind of weird. It wasn't like a traditional sniper, who shoots and then ducks back. He actually leaned out of the window. I think it's because he was so close to me, and he tried to finish me off. Just started opening up, and there's multiple rounds flying by me, and I'm just like, this is it. I mean, this is an AK-47 or a Dragunov or whatever.
Wow.
And I was injured, but I was turning my 240 Golf, which is a bell-fed machine gun, onto him. But then I saw that he was shooting at me from what looked like a residential building, an actual apartment building.
Wow.
There were people there clearly. This was a residential building, and I just, something in me said I cannot open up on this individual 25 meters away with a belt-fed weapon, knowing that behind me there's a guy with a Ma-Deuce, which is a 50 cal, which you can use to shoot down aircraft. There's other, 240 Golfs, and then there was another Marine not too far behind me with what's called a MK-19, Mark 19, which is a grenade launcher. And our training is that once we start opening fire and we're taking fire, we have to concentrate the crew-served weapons onto that area, and we would have destroyed the entire building. And the thing is, this happened over and over and over and over again in the war. I mean, this is just part of war. I mean, this was what took place in Vietnam and World War II. I mean, it's happening, in Ukraine and in Gaza right now. So but that's the training. Yeah. So my thing was, I mean, it was a split-second decision. I said, I can't open it up. I have to use my M4 instead. And I just, I remember him screaming at me, and I was screaming back at him, and I just opened up, and he eventually ducked back, but I used my small arm. I didn't use my crew-served weapon, and popped back down, and I was able to actually, get him to fall back into the window.
Yeah.
So they said that, I was able to respond. The award says that I was while wounded, I was able to fire back. And help my convoy escape the kill zone, and then the second part was for my time at the hospital. So again, another crazy sort of story. I used to, when I got to the Balboa Hospital, I linked up with my fraternity brothers at San Diego State, and we started throwing these parties on the weekends. And I would invite some of the guys from the hospital, and they'd come down there, and we'd just kick it, and we're like of a similar age. Yeah. We're all like, 19, 20, 21, college age, Marines and sailors and college age students, and we were hanging out. And I remember the medical director said that these little parties that he's doing was exactly what these Marines and sailors did. Instead of being cooped up at the hospital, we had a small little like a barracks right next to the hospital. We where we could easily access all our care and everything. That this is what they wanted. They wanted like folks to break away from this setting, and it helped with spirits. It helped with folks with who had depression, other Marines and sailors, and just that mere fact that I was the conduit, like. Because I was like, hey, look, I'm having a good time. I'm not going to be stuck at this hospital all the time and around this like, real like sadness. I mean, there was a sense of depression, there, but I'm bringing all my friends with me, and then I opened up to everybody, and then eventually some of the doctors came, my therapist came down,
You built a whole community.
They were cool, and then the actual colonel of our battalion saw that and actually put that in the actual. The award.
Really?
One for the actions of the actual combat itself, and the second was my time at the hospital.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, hey, look, you can one was for war, the other was for partying. But it did help. I mean, I remember a lot of other Marines saying this is just cool. I mean, I'm so glad that I'm away. I'm sorry, I got to go to the Gaslamp district, or it's where I'm just like one person here. I'm like around people my age. I'm around people who are similar to me.
You lifted their spirits up.
Yeah,
they needed it.
It was
most.
Yeah. That's why I got the Naval Achievement.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think community is something that underlines all of your experiences. I think that's easy to say. Regardless of where you are, you are fostering community. You are building community. You are community. Wherever you go, you're bringing it.
It was good. It was, and we had fun doing it too. I mean, it was good. I felt good about it. Yeah. And when I saw that too, and then when the colonel explained why. I received it. I was like, this is one of the coolest reasons, I get the first part, combat, injured and still responding back and, firing upon the enemy. But like the second part of the award, I was like, I don't think nobody else has something like that.
No one else got rewarded.
Yeah.
To party. Yeah. I love it. So let me see. I want to talk a little bit more about your educational background. We talked a little bit about your experience with UNLV, and we also talked about the University of Pennsylvania and Yale. Mm-hmm. So maybe less of your experience and more, how has your education influenced your career path as you move forward?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So, I think you got to compartmentalize it, So I think like my time as a CCST student, it was a good time. I actually have fond memories. It was tough. School is always tough. But, I was very involved, in the different like clubs and organizations, elementary school all the way through high school. In high school, I played 3 sports. I was the captain of the soccer team, the track captain, played basketball. Had a school record, in track and field. I was, senior class president. I was the homecoming king. But it was all about like being engaged and and always being open to people. Yeah. So I threw a lot of the functions. I planned the prom. I was very like engaged. And I just came to love my school and have a great sense of like school spirit. Yeah. And also come to love the community even more. Yeah. And so there was always a sense of like, this is my home turf. This is, crazy enough, I'm still there. I spent most of my time as a teacher at the high school I graduated from, where I was so involved.
You never left.
Never left. Yeah. But then, I also, when it comes to higher ed, I was able to get the whole gamut. I went to a community college, CCSN back then. Now it's CSN, a two-year institution. Mm-hmm. I went to a big state school. I went to UNLV, which is like one of our, flagship schools along with UNR. Yeah. But I also was able to study in the Ivy League. And so that actually, gave me a total gamut of like a broad spectrum of like our American college education system. I started off in a community college. I went to a big state school, and I also went to one of the top universities, 2 of the top universities in the world, frankly. And it gave me a perspective into like how they approach things, what works, what doesn't work. Yeah. And also being a product of the local school system, that has really, I think, helped me like understand education in a way that's kind of unique. I don't think there's a lot of other people who've had that sort of experience. Yeah. And also the area I grew up in and that I still serve today is a Title I area. It's one of the zip code I live in is one of the poorest in the entire state, and the school that I serve has some of the poorest students, as
Yeah.
well as some of the wealthiest, because of the magnet program that we've established at Rancho.
Yeah.
So it really, my whole purview with the sort of education I've received and the sort of education system I'm in is to really look at education from those different gamuts
Yeah.
and try to understand what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I come to my own conclusions. I don't go off of what CCSD tells me as to this is how you're supposed to teach,
Yeah.
or this is what you're supposed to teach,
Yeah.
or how you're supposed to go about it. I do it on my own, but then I also have the sort of experience and credentials to say this. I'm speaking from experience and also from a place of authority when I say
Yeah.
that I think we should look at education from
Yeah.
this lens as
Yeah.
opposed to the one that you're trying to shine. And that's what I think is the ultimate goal here is to take from the education I've received, the experiences I'm having, and now serving on the state education committee
Yeah.
to actually directly influence how education is administered in the state.
Tell me a little bit more about your approach to teaching. I want to know,
Yeah.
you as a teacher, if I were to walk into your high school classroom,
Mhm.
what is your approach?
Yeah, so my approach is, first and foremost, constantly working on building relationships and maintaining relationships constantly.
Yeah.
I just walk around the class, mess around with a kid, make fun of, make them, in a playful way, or
Yeah,
they'll give me some flack back, and it's just that sort of
Playful banter.
playful banter
Mhm.
all throughout the course of
Yeah.
the day, and that actually helps, because you also want to make some students, feel at ease who are probably not at ease. I work with some of our most challenged students. I've actually had students who are tremendously problematic in other classrooms sent to my class. And I welcome it. I don't think it's fair oftentimes, but I'm like, hey, look, I got it. I'll
Yeah.
deal with them and I'll work with them. Currently I was asked to be a part of the school's Star On program. And just to give a bit of a background on this. So this was a program that was implemented in the 17-19 legislative sessions as part of our restore development, saying that, we shouldn't just expel students, even if they've done some really significant things, like bring a weapon to school, assault a teacher, distribute drugs on campus. We should still keep them there and be in the confines of the school instead of expelling them. They have to be separate from the student body.
Yeah.
But they're still around familiar teachers. They're still around a familiar curriculum.
Yeah.
So I do that. I did that at Rancho, and I'm going to again be doing that at Rancho High School. So, but even there too, the mechanism is the same. It's about building relationships, knowing that the students know fully well that you care about them and you love them, and you have their best interest, and that's really the focus. And once you establish that with the classroom, you're pretty much good to go from then on. The students will learn. They'll pay attention. They'll work with you. They're less willing to. Of course, you're gonna get some pushback. You're working with teenagers. Who are almost adults. Mine are 11th and 12th graders.
Yeah.
But that basic sense of respect is never questioned. They know that, they respect me because I first and foremost respect them.
Yep.
And I think a lot of teachers go at it the opposite way. It's you need to respect me first because I am in this classroom and that's who I am. But a lot of students, I think, no matter where you're at, this could be in a wealthier part of Las Vegas or, a more, a more socioeconomically challenged area like I am in. It's the same though. I think teachers and educators have to show that they respect the students, show they care about the students, show that they love the kid. And once that's established, everything else becomes much more streamlined. That's why I think the teaching is the best career. I love it. They ask me all the time, how could you do it? Deal with those youngsters, deal with the issue that they bring to you. And we have some tough things too that we got to deal with. And we had a kid murdered, at Rancho High School stomped to death. This last it was in the news. This was a very traumatic, difficult thing to deal with. And I knew some of those kids. And I knew some of the individuals who were, the victims' friends, and family, and just knowing that this took place, and within our school, situation, people often ask me, how can you do it? How can you live with that? Of course, I think deep down inside it, it is traumatic even for us, but you have to be hopeful. You have to know that even that if something as brutal and vicious like this took place, you still can't say that all kids are bad.
Yep.
Or that our school system is failing because that we have to be optimistic and positive in addressing the issues and working towards making our education system a better place. But it always comes down to the relationship that you build one-on-one as a teacher with the students in your classroom.
Yeah. So little background on me, I have taught at UNLV and I teach incoming freshmen mostly. So very familiar with the age gap that you're talking about. And yes, building that relationship with your students, 100%. My teaching completely aligns with that. And everything that you just said echoes everything I believe in too. So I think reiterating the importance of building that relationship, but also, not demanding respect, but earning it from your students. No one in this world is given respect without earning it, so I think oftentimes we look at younger children and think that, they just should respect their elders, but it's like, you also need to respect them as humans. Everyone should respect each other. So I like that your teaching is built upon that, because I think that creates some really solid learning outcomes.
I've seen that, again, in my short life, I'm only in my late 30s. I feel old. I got a couple gray hairs. But in all the experiences that I've had, I've seen that is the key. It's first and foremost respecting others. Even in the war, we were occupying, a country. And when I was out there with the Iraqi people, we'd do humanitarian missions sometimes. We'd bring water. I used to always come about with these small little cigarettes, and I just give them away to people all day. And I remember after like about 2 months, there was this town called Habaniya, and there was a base there that we'd resupply. So one of the local Iraqi civilians came up to me. He was working there on the base, I think cleaning the base or something. And he was like, you know what, I got a gift for you. He took his jersey off, his Argentina soccer jersey, and his scarf. And he gave it to me, and he said, when you go back to America, when you're hanging out at Denny's, and he's saying all these, he knew a lot about American culture. He says, remember me with this gift, because I really appreciate you showing me respect. Because a lot of these other people didn't, but you did. You always came, and he gave me a cigarette, and it was something small. I mean, and it was these BDs they were called. You can get like 100 of them for $1, literally, and I just, that was my thing, but that also like taught me, that, you when you go out of your way to respect people who you're in a position of power over. I mean, I was a Marine occupying your country. I have a weapon, I'm walking around here. I'm not bullying you. I'm not telling you how to act. I'm not, scared of you. I'm coming to you, having conversations. I'm giving you I don't smoke, but I just gave him a cigarette and everybody else. It was $100 for $1. I mean, I'm literally just giving him. But I will never forget that. Like this person who,
it's impactful for that. It is, knowing that someone took the time to see them and give back to them, but also give them respect, treat them as a human being. And so oftentimes we just forget we're all humans.
That's all that it comes down to. Even my lawmaking, I go out, I make it a point to knock on doors and talk to voters. Host town halls, go and, address the issues, go on TV, talk about, I think that's what it comes down to. If your voters, if your constituents, if the people of the state, you go out of your way to engage with them. Instead of like, you come to me, I'm the assemblyman, I'm the state senator or whatever.
I have the power.
You have to come to me with your problems. And instead of saying, hey, look, I'm here to serve. So even if I go knock on their doors all the time, my neighbors. That's amazing. I still do it. I don't even have a race, but I make it a point to get out and, and it's
all the voices, the experiences.
To hear from them. Because in the end, that's my goal. And I've had a lot of, constituents tell me that too. Like, I can't believe it. I vote every single election. I know who my assemblyman is, my state senator, but you are the first person to come to my door, and not just do it once, do it frequently.
Wow.
And so that's been another cornerstone of my, service has been like, go to people. Don't expect them to come to you. Even if you're in a position of authority or, power over somebody else, you go out there and build that relationship. That's what's helped me in the classroom, it's what's helped me in the Marine Corps. And I think it's also what's, it's a positive thing, for me as a state lawmaker.
I think your ability to connect in any situation is what really drives, again, that dedication to community. I want to talk briefly about your advice to students in CCSD, in Clark County School District. how can they excel and pursue their dreams like you have? Have you dedicated your life to creating community? How can students do that?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good question too. I mean, I can probably go on for about an hour, maybe two, maybe a day. But I think what it boils down to really, and this can be tough for a lot of our students because there is a lot of, especially this generation that's coming out of COVID, that's really so influenced by social media and some of the negative aspects of it. I know the Surgeon General of the United States just came out and said that that social media companies should label themselves, as with some kind of warning label. I mean, this is real. These young people are really, really dealing with issues that we didn't have to deal with.
Right.
Not even 15 years ago, 10 years ago even.
So different.
And there's a lot of pessimism out there.
Yeah.
They tend to be more isolated. There's an uptick in depression levels amongst the young people. There's a sense that of hopelessness. And another thing too, and this is the one that I think startles me the most, is that they're not as interconnected with their own classmates, person to person.
Yeah.
They don't have as many friends, or
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of students open up to me about that. And so my thing is that you're in a place now that is actually giving you the opportunities to connect with other people, build strong relationships, build friendships, create like a family. If you don't have a strong family situation at home, you have an opportunity to do so here, and take advantage of that. I think that we as educators and as a school system as well need to nurture that.
Yeah.
So promote after school activities, promote sports, promote clubs, promote in class time for the students to build relationships with one another.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we can help in this endeavor. And I would tell students to be open to that. Know that that the system, CCSD, the school system itself, even your teachers, they're not your ops. They're not your, they're not against you. But they're here to serve, and we care about you deeply.
Yeah.
There's very few teachers that I think they may go about it the wrong way, but who really hate students.
Yeah.
There may be a couple out there, but the vast majority, I think, are in it because they care about what they do, and they care about making an impact. And they care about bettering the lives of the students that are placed, in their care for the duration of that year. Yeah. So I would tell students just to be open, and to know that, and if they're able to embrace that and accept it, I think things will change for the better, for those individual students.
So you talked a little bit about teachers. What would your advice then to be to the teachers? Your advice to the students is amazing. And I think, yes, reaching out and accessing those resources, building those connections, and trusting in the people around you, especially the leaders around you, teachers, influential figures. But what would your advice be to teachers or parents even?
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, I think Nevada has some of the best teachers in the country because they do so much with so little. I mean, we're a school system that's historically been underfunded, and we don't pay teachers well. But so many still decide to stay. We have a high level of attrition, especially with younger teachers coming in. But the ones who end up staying, who make it all the way through, is a small sliver. Who make it past like the 7-year mark, 10-year mark. These are some of the most amazing people that I've ever met in my life. And I've met some badass people, being in the armed services, studying at Yale, being in diplomacy in politics. But our teachers are what really give me hope. Yeah. Because they believe in something much bigger than themselves, and they're willing to give so much of themselves to a cause now to better other people, and to better young people, to build the future. So I want to tell them just to keep, stay positive and keep doing what you're doing, and let's try to help them and support them. We were finally able to give teachers a raise this past summer. Finally, it took decades to get to a point where we could actually give a 20% raise to teachers, and that's still not adequate. We're seeing, so we want to make sure I would want to let teachers know as a lawmaker now, and as one of your own, that you are a top concern of mine. I think that in the end, if our teachers can be supported, our teachers feel good about what they're doing, our teachers feel safe, in their environments, then everything can start falling into place.
Absolutely.
If they're there to knowing that they don't have to be afraid of students, or if they're implementing a certain program or process, they'll have the backing of the administration, they'll have the backing of the community to do so. I think we'll be good. Because, you know,
Yeah.
that's where the rubber meets the road. So I would
Yeah.
tell teachers, just keep doing what you're doing, stay positive, and we're going to do all that we can to support you. You know, it's now the only issue is I know teachers feel pessimistic about whether or not they had that support.
Yeah.
You know, is the state going to support education? Is it going to make education a priority? Are you going to give teachers the resources to allow us to succeed? And sometimes the answer is, you know, no, and we haven't not done a good job with that, and we have to keep doing a better job. But that's where I would ask them to be optimistic and hopeful that, you know, we are working towards bettering, you know, the profession. And if that happens, education will be better outcomes for our students, better opportunities for our students, more better educated and more positive workforce, greater economic growth, and it's going to be nothing but great things for our state. But it really comes to that, I think, philosophically, how well do we support our teachers, K through 12, as well as, you know, our educators in higher ed?
Yeah. I think that I want to echo what you said. We have some amazing educators here. I think through my high school experience, I think through all of my schooling, we really do have amazing teachers. And I think that that's so important to highlight. And they are such a critical part of our community. I want to also just expand a little more on what would you say to parents? How can they help? How can they show up for their students? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I say, you know, this is interesting too, because I think the data is showing now. That's the thing I kind of like, you know, we see this.
Yeah.
There's been less and less engagement from parents, you know, in the, you know, in the school system. I mean, it's to a point where, you know, when I'm making phone calls and emailing parents, they don't respond. The majority don't, you know. So, but the ones who do engage and are connected, their kids do really well. I mean, there's a direct correlation between parental engagement and the success of a student in the classroom.
Right.
And again, parental engagement isn't something we can legislate. It's not something that we can force upon, you know, parents. And I know there's some people out there, you know, there's a strong voice that they say that we need to like criminalize parent engagement. If you know, I don't think that's the answer either. So it's a tricky, like very like, you know, a very sort of a nuanced course that we have to take, you know, in order to build parental engagement, create the incentives, and bring them in. But I would say to parents that you have a golden opportunity. Take this as an immigrant. Take this as somebody who's traveled all over the world. You know, I'm getting ready to take a 7-country trip through Asia next week. You know, with a specific focus on visiting schools in the in these countries. You know, been through Africa. You know, Middle East. You know, seen war-torn schools. I've seen actually schools in a war zone. I've driven by them. I've gone in there and like, you know, and seen them as, you know. Yeah. It's you have the greatest opportunities for your kids in this country. It's better than any other country in the world. You know, you talk about Sweden and South Korea and all these places that have better outcomes, but the resources we put behind students in this country is just mind blowing. Yeah, the sort of opportunities that you can receive. You know, and it's even greater at the college level. If you go on to an American university, you are getting like the top 1% of 1% sort of education. You know, in the world. I mean, everybody comes here to study, you know, and so just know that you have a golden opportunity and make use of it, you know, stay engaged, make sure that your kids are taking advantage of those opportunities. Because if they do, I mean, the world is at their fingertips. Yeah. You know, even at a school like Rancho High School, you know, we have, you know, it's a tough neighborhood. It's a tough part of the city, but we have one of the best magnet programs in the entire country right there. Yeah. You know, in the 89101. You know, in that zip code, Civic Center Lake Mead area, you know, top 25 magnet program for aviation. You know, we're actually graduating students. One of my students who's a rocket scientist, a literal rocket scientist working for JPL and is now working for, I think, Northrop Grumman on the F-35 fighter jet system.
That is so impressive.
I mean, this is one of my students who grew up in that neighborhood. So impressive. Because he went through the program. Yeah. You know, we have countless doctors. We have countless, you know, nurses and PAs. We have a medical magnet program there too. The resources are mind-blowing. But one of my things is there's so few students who take part of, you know, who engage and participate in those sort of programs. Right. And so I think we got to do a better job of like marketing those programs. Yeah. But parents also, you know, got to stay engaged. If you stay on top of it, I mean, I know it's hard sometimes. You got to work. You know, my parents are both working parents. Yeah. My dad was a bus driver, you know, for the city bus. Yeah. You know, when I was in high school. he wasn't around as much, but he was always, dotting in on us, even if it was like 15 minutes a day, making sure that we were, checking in.
Checking in, seeing how things are going.
Straight up, just engaged though. Still, even though he was working straight,
he cared.
He cared, yeah.
He cared.
So I would say, just understand that you are in a place where you can make all of your child's dreams come true. Mm-hmm. Your dreams come true as well. But just stay engaged, take advantage of those resources. We shouldn't be in a place where we're offering thousands of dollars worth of scholarships and only a couple kids apply. And it's usually those kids who have the resources at home, who come from wealth or affluence, who take part in those scholarships.
Yeah.
So that's something I think that we got to do. It's a two-part thing. Parents, stay engaged. Make sure your kids come to school. I know chronic absenteeism is a big issue right now.
Yeah.
But on the same token, also we as a school system got to do a better job of like marketing and sometimes even going out there recruiting kids into these programs.
Yeah.
And keeping them there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the sort of dynamic we have moving forward. I think it's a partnership. It's parents.
Yeah.
And
it is.
A village. It takes so many people, so many components for success. I'm going to close out by saying thank you so much to our wonderful guest, Mr. D'Silva. It has been a pleasure getting to talk to you about your inspiring journey and perspective on education. Thank you so much to our listeners for joining us on the Sapience Podcast. If you'd like to hear more about Mr. D'Silva's journey, where can we find more information?
Okay, so there's multiple ways you can contact me. Go to my website, www.desilva4, spelled F-O-R, Nevada.com. Or you can just, Google me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, all the social medias.
Amazing.
Reuben D'Silva, and I'm very approachable, very interactive, so please reach out.
We're also going to put your information on thesapience.com so our viewers and listeners can also get to you that way. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you all so much for listening.